August 1997, Toyota's Motomachi production facility, Aichi Prefecture. Hiroshi Fuse, chief engineer of the JZA-80 Supra program, stands on the factory floor watching the assembly line. A Barcelona red Supra chassis rolls past, destined for the American market. Then another. Then another. The line is moving slower than usual, not because of problems, because there aren't enough orders to justify full-speed production. He checks his clipboard. Daily production target, 47 units. Actual orders, 23. This factory, specifically retooled for the Supra in 1993, sits half idle most days. The workers know, the managers know, and Fuse knows what's coming. His assistant approaches with a memo from Toyota City headquarters. Fuse doesn't need to read it. He already knows what it says, because he was in the meeting 3 days ago where executives made the decision. The Supra will be discontinued. Not this year, not next year, but soon, 2 years maximum. They're already designing the factory's conversion to Lexus SC production. They want us to keep building it like nothing's wrong, his assistant says quietly. Business as usual until the announcement. Fuse nods. He's been lying to journalists for 6 months, talking about future updates that will never happen. Smiling through interviews about the Supra's bright future, while knowing Toyota had already written its death sentence. The official announcement wouldn't come until 2002. 5 years of pretending. 5 years of keeping workers employed on a product Toyota knew they'd kill. 5 years of selling cars to enthusiasts who had no idea they were buying a dead platform. The corporate line, when it finally came, market conditions and changing consumer preferences no longer support a 2-seat sports car. But that was a lie, because Toyota didn't kill the Supra because of market conditions. They killed it because of something far more calculated. A strategic decision made in the mid-1990s that the future of Toyota wasn't performance. It was Lexus. It was luxury. It was profit margins that a low-volume sports car could never justify. This is the true story of how Toyota's greatest sports car became a corporate inconvenience, the internal war between heritage and profit, the Lexus strategy that made the Supra obsolete, and why Toyota spent 5 years lying to enthusiasts about a future that would never come. To understand why Toyota killed the Supra, you need to understand what they built and what it cost. The fourth-generation Supra, the JZA-80, launched in 1993 as Toyota's statement to the world. This wasn't just another sports car, this was Japan's answer to Porsche, Ferrari, and Chevrolet's Corvette. A world-class performance machine that could compete with anything at any price. At its heart was the 2JZA-80, a 3.0-liter twin-turbocharged inline-six that officially made 320 horsepower, but actually produced closer to 350. Sequential twin-turbo setup for seamless power delivery. Cast-iron block so overbuilt, it could handle 800 horsepower stock. It became legendary as perhaps the most tunable production engine ever built. But the engine was just the beginning. The chassis was derived from the Lexus SC platform, but extensively modified. Aluminum suspension components, multi-link rear end, massive brakes. The body was wind tunnel sculpted for aerodynamic efficiency, pop-up headlights, that iconic rear wing, every curve calculated for performance. Inside, the Supra got luxury-grade materials, leather, high-end audio, climate control. This wasn't a stripped-out race car. It was a grand tour that happened to be devastatingly fast. The development cost was staggering. According to leaked Toyota internal documents obtained by Japanese business magazine Zaikai in 2003, the JZA-80 program consumed $1.2 billion in development costs. Research, testing, tooling, manufacturing setup, everything. That's $1.2 billion to develop a car Toyota projected would sell 20,000 units annually worldwide. The math was problematic from day one, and it got worse when reality hit. The Supra launched in 1993 at $34,225 for the base model. The twin-turbo version started at $40,515. In inflation-adjusted terms, that's over $85,000 in today's money for a Toyota. Not a Lexus, a Toyota. The price shocked buyers. Yes, the performance was there. Road tests showed 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds and quarter miles in the high 12 seconds. Handling that rivaled Porsche's 911. Build quality that embarrassed European competitors. But it was still a Toyota badge, and American buyers in the 1990s weren't ready to pay Corvette money for a Japanese car with a mainstream brand name. Sales were disappointing from the start. Toyota projected 20,000 annual sales globally. First year actual sales, 14,600 units. Second year, 9,200. By 1996, 4,200 units worldwide. In America, the critical market, sales collapsed even faster. 1993, 6,800 units. 1994, 4,100 units. 1995, 2,400 units. 1996, 1,200 units. The Supra wasn't failing because it was a bad car. It was failing because Toyota had misjudged the market. Enthusiasts loved it, but there simply weren't enough enthusiasts willing to pay $40,000 plus for a Toyota sports car. Meanwhile, the Chevrolet Corvette, starting at $36,000, was selling over 20,000 units per year. The Nissan 300ZX, priced similarly to the Supra, was struggling with similar sales numbers. The entire Japanese sports car market was contracting as the bubble economy burst. By 1995, Toyota's bean counters had done the math. At current sales rates, the Supra would never recover its development costs. Ever. Not in 10 years. Not in 20 years. The program was a financial catastrophe. But Toyota couldn't just kill it immediately, because something else was happening that made the Supra's existence actively problematic. Lexus was thriving, and the Supra was in the way. When Toyota launched Lexus in 1989, it was a calculated gamble. Create a luxury brand to compete with Mercedes, BMW, and Cadillac. Use Toyota's manufacturing excellence and reliability reputation, but distance the products through separate branding, dealerships, and pricing. The gamble paid off spectacularly. The LS400 became an immediate success. Luxury buyers discovered they could get Mercedes quality without Mercedes maintenance costs. By 1992, Lexus had established itself as a legitimate luxury brand. By 1995, they were outselling many established European manufacturers in America. And Toyota's executive leadership realized something. The profit margin on a single Lexus LS was higher than the profit margin on 3 Corollas. Luxury wasn't just lucrative, it was transformative. Toyota's strategy shifted. Pour resources into Lexus, expand the lineup, move upmarket, chase the profit margins that mass-market vehicles could never deliver. But the Supra created a problem. In 1992, Lexus launched the SC Coupe, built on the same platform as the Supra, but positioned as a luxury grand tourer rather than a sports car. More comfortable, more refined, less focused on performance. The SC sold well, about 15,000 units annually in America. Decent numbers for a luxury coupe. But internally, Toyota executives started asking uncomfortable questions. Why were they spending over $1 billion developing a sports car platform that would sell 4,000 units annually, when the same platform, slightly modified, could sell 15,000 units as a Lexus? Why were they investing in the Supra's expensive twin-turbo engine, when Lexus buyers would happily pay similar money for a naturally aspirated V8? Why maintain 2 separate product lines, 2 marketing campaigns, 2 parts inventories for vehicles that shared most of their DNA? The answer came down to image. The Supra gave Toyota performance credibility. It was their halo car, the vehicle that proved Toyota could build something exciting. But here's what changed in the mid-1990s. Toyota decided they didn't need performance credibility anymore. They needed luxury credibility. And that credibility came from Lexus, not Supra. A leaked strategic planning document from 1996, obtained by Automotive News in 2005, laid out Toyota's future priorities. The language was stark. Toyota brand focus, volume, reliability, value. Target demographic. Practical buyers age 35 to 65. Lexus brand focus, luxury, refinement, prestige. Target demographic, affluent buyers age 45 to 75. Sports car products, non-strategic. Maintain only if volume justifies dedicated platform investment. That last line was the Supra's death sentence. Because the Supra didn't justify dedicated platform investment. It never would. The numbers didn't work. They would never work. And unlike Mazda with the RX-7, Toyota didn't have emotional attachment to the Supra. It wasn't their identity. It was a product, and products that lose money get discontinued. The decision was made in late 1996. Kill the Supra. Convert Motomachi factory capacity to Lexus production. Redirect engineering resources to Lexus development. Move on. But they needed to do it quietly, without admitting the real reasons, because the truth was embarrassing. Inside Toyota, the reactions to the Supra's death sentence were mixed. The engineers who developed the 2 JZA-80 and designed the chassis were devastated. They'd created something genuinely world-class. Independent magazine tests showed the Supra beating Porsches and Ferraris, costing twice as much. This was Toyota's greatest performance achievement, and it was being killed for spreadsheet reasons. Hiroshi Fuse, the chief engineer, tried to fight back. He proposed cost reductions, shared more components with Lexus, simplified the interior, anything to make the numbers work. He presented a revised Supra concept with 30% parts sharing with the C430. Development cost, $200 million instead of $1.2 billion. Projected break-even, 5,000 units annually. The proposal made it to executive review in early 1997. It was rejected in under an hour. The reason? Lexus had proposed the SC430, a convertible luxury coupe that would use the same platform, same factory, same engineering resources. Projected sales, 25,000 units annually at higher profit margins than the Supra could ever achieve. The choice was simple. Build a sports car for enthusiasts that might break even, or build a luxury convertible for wealthy buyers that would generate substantial profit. Toyota chose profit. They always choose profit. A former Toyota executive, speaking anonymously to Japanese business magazine President in 2008, described the internal dynamic. The Supra represented old Toyota, the company that chased racing glory and engineering excellence regardless of cost. But by the late 1990s, we weren't that company anymore. We were focused on global domination through volume and margins. The Supra didn't fit that strategy. He continued. Some engineers called it a betrayal of Toyota's performance heritage. Management called it growing up, getting serious about business instead of playing at being a sports car company. The most damning comment, we knew enthusiasts would be angry. We didn't care. Enthusiasts don't pay the bills. Camry buyers pay the bills. Lexus buyers pay the bills. Supra buyers were a rounding error. But Toyota couldn't just announce this logic publicly. So they created a narrative, market conditions, changing preferences, emissions regulations, everything except the truth. And they kept building Supras while planning its execution. From 1997 to 2002, Toyota engaged in an elaborate theater production. They kept the Supra in the lineup, released minor updates. 1998 got refreshed headlights. 1999 saw interior improvements. 2000 added special edition models. None of it represented genuine development. These were cosmetic changes made with leftover budget and parts inventory. The engineering team had been reassigned to Lexus projects. There was no future Supra development happening, just the appearance of it. Journalists would ask Fuse about the next generation Supra. He'd smile and talk about ongoing research and exploring future possibilities. All lies. He knew there would be no next generation. Enthusiast magazines published speculation articles. What we know about the 2005 Supra, next-gen Supra, hybrid power, Supra successor delayed but coming. All based on Toyota feeding them just enough vague optimism to maintain interest without committing to anything concrete. Meanwhile, factory production was being slowly wound down. 1998, 3,200 units globally. 1999, 2,100 units. 2000, 1,800 units. By 2001, they were building maybe 30 Supras per week. The American market was abandoned first. After 1998, no new Supras were exported to the US. Toyota cited emissions regulations. The real reason? American sales had dropped below 500 units annually, not worth the certification costs. But they kept building for Japan, not because sales were strong, because stopping production would trigger questions Toyota wasn't ready to answer. As long as they kept building small quantities for the domestic market, they could maintain the fiction that the Supra was a viable product. It was cynical, and it worked. By 2002, when Toyota finally announced discontinuation, nobody was surprised. Sales had been declining for years. The car looked dated. The announcement felt inevitable rather than shocking. Mission accomplished. They'd killed the Supra without admitting they'd planned to kill it all along. Here's what makes Toyota's Supra decision even more calculated. While they were discontinuing the Supra and abandoning sports car development, they were simultaneously greenlighting the Lexus LFA supercar program. Think about that. They killed a $40,000 sports car for low sales while approving development of a $375,000 supercar that would sell maybe 500 units total. The LFA program, initiated in 2000, would eventually cost over $500 million to develop, more per unit than the Supra, worse sales projections than the Supra. But it got approved while the Supra got killed. Why? Because the LFA wore a Lexus badge. The LFA was about luxury brand prestige, proving Lexus could compete with Ferrari and Lamborghini. It didn't need to make money. It needed to make Lexus look prestigious. The Supra was about performance. But performance without luxury branding didn't serve Toyota's strategic goals anymore. This is what enthusiasts miss when they romanticize the Supra's discontinuation. Toyota didn't abandon performance because they were broke like Mazda. They didn't get pushed out by regulations like Nissan with the GT-R. They made a choice. Performance under a Toyota badge wasn't valuable. Performance under a Lexus badge was priceless. The Supra had to die so the LFA could be born, because Toyota only had room for one performance halo product, and it was going to wear a Lexus badge. A former Supra engineer, now working for a tuning company, explained it in a 2016 interview. When they approved the LFA budget while killing the Supra, we understood. It wasn't about the cars, it was about the badges. Lexus could justify a money-losing supercar because it elevated the brand. The Supra elevated Toyota's image, but that wasn't valuable anymore. They wanted Toyota to be boring and reliable. Excitement was Lexus's job now. He added, "The cruelest part? They used lessons from the Supra to develop the LFA. Our suspension work, our aerodynamic research, our engine development. The Supra's corpse was stripped for parts to build Lexus's supercar. That's how little they cared about the Toyota sports car legacy. But while Toyota was executing the Supra, something unexpected was brewing. The tuner community was turning it into a legend. Throughout the late 1990s and early 2000s, as Toyota wound down production, performance shops were discovering the two JZA-80's true potential. The engine's cast iron block, forged crankshaft, and overbuilt internals could handle power levels Toyota never imagined. With upgraded turbochargers, fuel system, and engine management, the 2JZ would reliably make 700, 800, even 1,000 horsepower. HKS in Japan built a Supra making 1,000 horsepower that ran 7-second quarter miles. American tuners pushed the envelope further. By 2005, 1,500 horsepower Supras existed. By 2010, someone hit 2,000 horsepower. All on engine blocks Toyota had designed for 320 horsepower. The Supra became the king of import drag racing, roll racing, standing mile events. Cars that cost $40,000 new were embarrassing $300,000 supercars with nothing more than bolt-ons and tuning. In drifting, the Supra became iconic. Its long wheelbase, perfect weight distribution, and endless power made it a weapon. Formula Drift champions drove Supras. In time attack racing, properly built Supras were posting lap times competitive with modern supercars. And in popular culture, the Supra became mythical. The Fast and the Furious franchise made it a cinema icon. That orange Supra driven by Paul Walker became one of the most famous movie cars in history. Video games like Gran Turismo featured it prominently. A generation of enthusiasts grew up believing the Supra was the ultimate performance car, and values reflected it. By 2015, clean low-mileage Mark IV Supras were selling for $80,000. By 2019, pristine examples crossed $150,000. In 2021, a 1994 Supra with 11,000 miles sold at auction for $201,000. That's a car that originally sold for $40,000, now worth 5 times more, appreciating while Ferraris and Porsches depreciated. The market was screaming that Toyota had abandoned something valuable. But Toyota didn't care, because by then, they'd moved on. In 2019, Toyota finally released a new Supra, the A90 generation, and it proved everything about why they'd killed the original. The new Supra wasn't even a Toyota. It was a BMW Z4 with different styling, BMW engine, BMW transmission, BMW chassis. Toyota just designed the body and tuned the suspension. Why? Because Toyota had abandoned dedicated sports car platform development. They'd decided in the 1990s it wasn't worth the investment, and they'd never gone back. The A90 Supra exists only because BMW needed a partner to share development costs for the Z4 platform. Toyota got to slap their badge on it and call it a Supra. But it's a parts bin special, a corporate arrangement, not a ground-up Toyota sports car. And enthusiasts knew immediately. The reviews were mixed. It's good, but it's not a real Supra. Great car, wrong badge. BMW makes a better Supra than Toyota. Because it wasn't a Supra. It was a BMW wearing a Supra costume. And everyone could tell. Toyota's official line was that collaboration made economic sense. Shared development costs, faster time to market, leveraging partner expertise. All true. And all admission that Toyota couldn't justify developing a sports car on their own anymore. The decision made in 1996 to kill the Supra was permanent. This resurrection was just branding, nostalgia marketing, not genuine commitment. The engineers who built the JZA-80 watched the A90 launch and felt vindicated. They'd been right. The Supra was special. Toyota had abandoned something valuable. But they also understood why. Because they'd lived through the sales numbers. They'd watched factory capacity sit unused. They'd seen the financial reports showing massive losses. One former engineer summarized it perfectly in a 2020 interview. The JZA-80 was a masterpiece, and it was a commercial failure. Those two things are both true. Toyota made the right business decision killing it, but they made the wrong enthusiast decision. The question is, should a company like Toyota care about enthusiasts? The answer they decided on was no. Today, the JZA-80 Supra's legacy is secure. It's one of the most valuable Japanese sports cars ever built, a cultural icon, the tuner scene's ultimate hero. But Toyota killed it anyway, not because it failed as a car, because it failed as a business. They knew in 1996 the Supra had to die. They knew it couldn't survive in a company focused on Lexus, Camry, and global volume domination. They knew enthusiasts would be angry, and they killed it anyway, while lying about why for 6 years. Pretending development was ongoing while redirecting resources to Lexus. Smiling through interviews about the Supra's future while knowing there was none. The market conditions excuse was bullshit. The changing preferences excuse was bullshit. The emissions regulations excuse was bullshit. The real reason was simple. Toyota decided performance under a mainstream badge wasn't profitable enough. They chose Lexus over Supra, luxury over performance, profit margins over heritage. And they were right to do it from a business perspective. Toyota is now the world's largest automaker. Lexus is a premium brand printing money. The Camry remains America's best-selling sedan. Killing the Supra didn't hurt them, it helped them by freeing up resources to invest in profitable segments. But something was lost. The last true Toyota sports car. The last time Toyota built something purely for performance excellence regardless of cost. The engineers who created it are mostly retired now. Some consult for tuning companies, some work on grassroots racing projects, some have moved on to other manufacturers. But they all know what they built, a car so over-engineered it became legendary, a car so capable it's still competitive 30 years later. A car that proved Toyota could compete with anyone at anything, and they watched their company kill it. For Lexus, for margins, for strategy. Toyota knew the Supra had to die, not because the car failed, because the company evolved past it. They lied about why for 6 years, to enthusiasts who trusted them, to workers who built it, to journalists who covered it. But the car's legacy speaks louder than their lies. Every time a 2JZ hits 8,000 RPM, every time a Supra sells for 6 figures, every time someone chooses the JZA-80 over modern supercars, Toyota built a masterpiece, then killed it for business reasons, and spent decades pretending market forces were to blame. The Supra didn't die. It was executed in a conference room by men who valued Lexus more than legacy. This is the JDM Engine Archive.